when we were looking earlier in one of the last panel sessions, we were looking at data gathering in terms of numbers and being specific on how we target some of the people that we need to target for sales and marketing. And whilst most of the folks here are dealing with big data per se, I'm really interested in the marketing side, because at the end of the day, nothing happens in a company without sales, regardless of what the company is. We're all selling something, right? True. Let's first, well, since you said true the first, let's first look at your organization. You did, we're probably going to repeat a little bit here, but if we can hone in on perhaps some of the initiatives in terms of managing sales accounts using big data, without going into the sort of corporate structure,
sure.
but specifically on sales.
Lovely. Thank you again for hosting us here, and I think there's a great opportunity for us as an organization to capitalize on the great amounts of data that we capture about the marketplace in aligning our sales team. The reality is there's a lot of information captured at, let's say, an organization level in terms of this organization activities, in terms of new hires, size of an organization and its footprint, because this has been somehow demystified in the, collectively through the profiles or resumes that gets captured on our platform about these organizations, and their activities, or the activities that happens through the professionals that are on our platform conducting changes on their profiles or actively pursuing certain career opportunities, gives us certain signals that would allow us to communicate with these organizations on time with the right message. And I think that's, at least from a sales perspective, how it could make use of tremendous amount of data in concluding about an event that is timely and most probably effective for our sales team.
Let me ask Luigi the same question. From Dell's point of view, when you're looking at people who are looking for information and the technology to be able to process the information, where does Dell fit into this? What sort of software management solutions are you providing? Is that what you can tell us about today?
I can tell you a number of things. I mean, our customers do some very amazing things with the data they have, and we're very proud to help them actually get there. So I think, I heard through the conference a couple of challenges that come regularly. The first one is an integration challenge. You have data coming from many different sources of which you don't really understand necessarily the structures, because maybe you don't own those sources. Think the social media sources, think weather forecast coming from the national forecast company, think Salesforce.com as a SaaS. I mean, all these guys own their databases. They change it regularly to add new features. And so if you want to embed information coming from their businesses, it's going to be a very difficult challenge to do integration in the legacy way in which you had static interfaces. So we have a solution called Boomi that actually use crowdsourced information. So look to all the integration that our customers do, about 1 million integration a day, to then suggest to the customer what type of fields or standards need to be used. This way the customer can focus on what they want to do with the data rather than spending money on actually getting the data. And then the next part that I think come very often is, how do you actually study and use data in those big data lakes, right? Data is exploding. I don't know if anybody in the audience has ever heard of a zettabyte database.
There you go, a few show of hands there.
Very good. So we just recently completed a zettabyte database big data project. Now, the challenge with those large projects, I mean, zettabyte, by the way, for the non-initiated, is 1,000 exabytes, that is 1,000 petabytes, that is 1,000 terabytes. So it's a lot, right? So the problem with all of these is that usually statistical analytic model that you're using predictive analytics take a slice of the data. So let's take a terabyte, right? And that's maybe already a long shot because you don't have computers with a terabyte of data to do all the compute, but let's assume so. Now you're taking 1 millionth of the data that you have in your database to do your predictive model. For data that are unstructured and you don't understand, then you're really not predicting anything. You're just taking a shot and having a look at it, right? So what we do with the solution called Statistica is to actually apply predictive analytics within the Hadoop cluster. So we inject the code for statistic within the cluster rather than extracting the data and process the data separately. That reduces the cost because you do it on a cluster-based level, so it's on disk, and improve performance because you can scale much faster the number of nodes, and most importantly, is relevant statistically speaking because now you're looking at your entire data. So if you're doing machine learning, neuronal networks, data mining, is all really applicable. Now, what I'm saying may shock some people who think Dell does laptop and tablets and servers and all of that. Yeah, absolutely, we're done for the last 30 years. We love it very much. But as Michael loves to say, we are the only left end-to-end solution provider in the world. And to be an end-to-end solution provider, you need to have both ends. And we have it all, right? So we start with clients and gateways. You may have heard my colleagues Anthony speaking in the IoT section about our new IoT gateways, but we go up to the statistical layer with product like Boomi and Statistica for data management. So.
Luigi, I certainly don't mind the commercial there. That's absolutely fine. Let me just ask Kumar, if I may, regarding the integration, I think that you mentioned, Luigi, that seemed to be a crucial element to all of this. So from Century Malls, I mean, with such a diverse range of operations, this integration must be of paramount importance to you. So how do you deal with that in terms of managing the vast amount of data that comes through and turn that into some sort of a tangible working amount of information that you can use for your sales force?
This is a business problem which is till eternity, actually. So this is a business problem which is a problem itself, which defines the problem and creates a problem tree. And the most important part here is the business process alignment.
Just try and hold it up a bit.
Yeah, sorry. So the most important part is the business process alignment here with various data sources. Looking at our retail infrastructure, we have lots of data emanating from various sources, which are legacy systems, back office systems, ERP systems, security and surveillance systems, sensors, anti-theft devices, and what we call an IoT. Definitely there's an IoT kind of environment which is having primarily 4 types of intelligence data. The first one is what we call the business intelligence. The other one is the analytics intelligence. The third one is the continuous intelligence, the continuous source of data or the continuous feed of data which is coming, For example, your consumer behavior, which are being captured through your CCTV cameras and surveillance systems and sensors. And finally is what you call the federated or content intelligence, which is basically a humongous amount of data which are coming from various portals, from various wire feeds, from social analytics, so from social data. Giving that perspective, the retailer's challenge, as a retailer, the challenge is how to align all this data in terms of customer centricity. So customer centricity, or I say the consumer behavior. So how my consumer behavior is impacting my sales behavior, and how my sales behavior is impacting my overall supply chain behavior, which I call advanced replenishment optimization. For example, I trade and import products from various countries, and I do understand that given that situation of the customer demand in the markets, the supermarkets, and the malls, I have my products which are to be, to be fetched from various parts of the world. How I organize my complete supply chain, that's the major challenge. In order to, combat these challenges.
Can I come in there and just ask you, can you organize your supply chain efficiently and effectively without an integrated system to tell you what the customers want? Or is it still, as it was only a few years ago, best guess?
Yes. The best part of an example I can provide you in this supply chain is a very powerful EDI, that is electronic data interchange, which is basically connecting my suppliers directly with my own warehouses. So whenever the inventory levels in my warehouse, it goes through a kind of, minimum level or threshold level, the suppliers are automatically, notified, and the supply chain begins from there. The container loading starts. And this complete I call it e-supply chain or ESC bit, or make it more popular in terms of mobile and cloud computing, like MSCM or mobile SCM. So we are trying to create an intelligent retailing through smart analytics, through smart data, which is sitting on the huge pyramid of big data.
That seems to make a lot of sense. Now, Hijazi, you wanted to come in a little earlier, and I stole the microphone off you when I was asking Luigi, because I just wanted to carry on to talk about that. But what were you going to say about the first element, or do you want to come in on the back of this?
So I work on a company called Cleartrip. It's an online travel company. So I want to tackle this with real examples of how we actually look at the big data. So, every 2 years, there is always a fancy word comes up. Now, big data is the fancy word. And, consultants come and make this quadrant, the magic quadrant, and then suppliers would like to be in that. But at the end of the day, big data is a lot of data. It's as simple as that. So today, people leave a lot of digital traces. When you use your mobile, when you use your car, when you open your browser, when you hear music, if you read your books, you always are leaving data traces. So at Cleartrip, because we sell travel, we always start with a problem statement. So I'll give you one concrete example. We pay a lot of money for search engines and meta companies like Google, TripAdvisor for bidding. So it's a bidding module where you need to compete on keywords. So the question is this: how can we use the existing data and develop a predictive model where we can optimize our bidding process and pay less? So that is like a problem statement that have an effect on the bottom line directly. So we built our model, and today we are saving literally millions of dollars because we are using predictive models how to do bidding. So this is how, what I would like to mention is, because I heard this term many times within this conference, companies would like to jump into the big data, governments would like to jump into the big data. But what's really important is to think, why do you need, what problem would you like to solve? And big data is only a lot of data. So that's what...
Okay, I understand the processes of that. What I wanted to go to next was, I think when I was talking to you about best guess, or making assumptions about numbers and about the amount of data and the amount of information that's coming through. Inaccurate assumptions obviously are not the way forward. We do really need to be accurate. But how far progressed are we? And I'll open this to all of you. I know you have an answer for this. But how far are we progressed in terms of being able to put together systems which can deal with the amount of data, not today, but the amount of data that we know that we're going to have within the next few years to deal with some of the parameters that you need to embrace to make sure that your businesses survive in the next 3 to 5 years. I could start with you if you wish, Mr. Akram.
Basically, I think the biggest challenge is not really the system which capture the data or collect the data. It's predominantly on how making sure that the data is basically layered out in a way that it lends itself for more of a pull rather than just a push.
So it's the analysis stage that we're talking about, which is the important
and
stage.
that needs to be basically layered out in a way that it's driven by initiatives, by business users, by potentially certain changes possibly on the product, maybe on the sales process, maybe in the marketing area. This is the real challenge. How do you make sure that all dimensions are basically brought into one single layer, and it's basically fed, cleansed from all noise as much as you can, so you would give the user a much clearer picture. For us, for example, it's very important for me that I keep my system as fluid as possible, so people are able to enter information the way they have basically used to enter it, everybody would name his company different. He might name it by the agency name, by the product name, but whatever. But at the same time, I need a system that is able to detect the variations, the issues in the data, and reconnect it in the right aggregates level that gives each and every decision maker, whoever the decision maker, whether it's a job seeker wants to make a decision, if he needs to change on his CV to add some extra information to make it more appealing, or for an employer to know that, most of my jobs, I've hired the best people because they're coming from these education institutes versus those, or basically based on our business users who might be able to depict a new plan for a campaign, let's say marketing campaign, to balance between the supply and demand of talent and opportunity. So I think this is the biggest challenge, rather than, let's say, the physical infrastructure or the technical infrastructure.
Kumar, I saw you nodding there. Do you agree with the sentiments there?
There are two parts of this, this particular problem. One is the demand and supply, the way he mentioned. Another is the user behavior, so which are very important. Again, in my retail term, I call it consumer behavior. So something which is linking the huge mass of data, the massive data which is building up through various sources and taking more importance these days, is sentiment analytics. Mm-hmm. Now, when I talk about sentiment analytics, I had a very powerful research on that, and it came from US-based research in which how the tweets impacted the DJIA, Dow Jones Industrial Average, on a particular day. And the users, the online users, the social analytics users, they were defined having 6 mood states: happy, tragic, vital, so very smooth states. And their submission on the analytics portal was based on the mood state. So there were two tools that were used, and I think it's very interesting to Google it out, is GPOM's Google Profile of Mood States, and another one, very interesting, is the Google Opinion Finder. So X mood, Y opinion. So this is XY analysis, which is basically leveraging a particular behavior. And based on that behavior, how the business is behaving, and so consumer behavior, business behavior, supplier behavior. So it's a complete supply chain, because any business is, sales and purchase. You know what it is? So there's a procurement which is happening, some kind of procurement, whether in terms of services, and there's a sales which is happening.
I think this is a very sophisticated way of looking, as you say, at behavior and about customer mood. And I suppose it's if you go back to the old-fashioned smiley faces on TripAdvisor, 1 smiley face meant that they weren't really that happy. 5 smiley faces meant the receptionist was nice and they had a good meal. So it's a really more sophisticated adaptation of showing what customer preference is for that particular. That's very reactive, though, and still reactive. There's nothing proactive about that. Nothing wrong with that. You can be reactive and then react to your customers as well. Mr. Hijazi, let's ask you the same sort of question then. If you're looking at that type of adaptive research, if you will, to look at how customers are behaving, is that something that you hold valuable in your organization? Is that something that you focus on predominantly, or isn't it that important?
No, definitely. And I would like to be also, again, very practical and give you real examples. So let's say research shows today, people when they search for their flights, they search, imagine, 48 times, different sites, jumping from one site to another, then they will make a decision 48 times. Now, they are doing this because they don't have the confidence either on the day they are traveling or the price of the airline or like many things. So the question is this: what can we do? And similar, by the way, for hotels. So the question is, how can we be proactive and provide a technology using big data to simplify the process for consumers? So let me give an example. Today, if you normally, if you book your flights first, then you book hotels. This is how normally people behave. Now the question is this: you booked your flights, you are going to book your hotels. You go and search for whatever city. What is the hotels that you need to see on the first page? That is the question if we ask ourselves every day. Now, you can put sorting per price, per ratings. There is many, many ways. But imagine if we know that you, let's say, booked a business class. So most probably you're looking for a 5-star hotel. Let's say you booked for a two-way, let's say a short trip, 2 days. Most probably you're a business person. And we dig on our data and we know, let's say you have a frequent flight, let's say with Hilton. So based on these data, you can actually show a 5-star hotel, midtown, with Wi-Fi, Hilton on the top, and provide this. Most probably you saved this person to actually search again and again. So I'll give another example, very simple one. Like today, if you go and let's say search Dubai, London. Now you are searching Dubai, London, but you may fly Sharjah, London if the price is like, I don't know, like half of the price. So there's no issues with that. Or let's say from Abu Dhabi. Now, without even you asking these questions, this is where we come in. You need to be proactive and give the consumer, based on their behavior, solutions without them actually knowing or putting an effort to be a seamless process. So I totally, embrace that you need to start with a problem statement and solve it using big data.
Okay, we're coming back to architecture again for organizations that want to build their businesses on something very robust in terms of being proactive for sales. This would stamp out that inaccurate assumptions that people can make, because you want to make very accurate assumptions that the business travel may want to stay in a 4 to 5-star hotel. If you go on, I can't think what website it is now, but if I want to book a hotel, say in Istanbul for tomorrow, I log on and book in 2 or 3 of my favorite hotels. Something will flash up and tell me to hurry up because 65 other people are looking for that same room, and this is the last time I can get it at that price. Sorry, it's a long question, and I'm really coming back now to Luigi to bring all of this together. What is it, do you think, that we can do as an industry, not necessarily just Dell, so it's not the commercial, but what can we do generally as an industry to help commerce to be much more proactive, using the data that we all know that we can now get? How can we manufacture? If I'm, say, the CEO, let's use a travel company since we spoke about that. I'm the CEO of a travel company, and I want to sell as much as I possibly can. I want to maximize every last dollar out of every eyeball that comes anywhere near close.
The challenge I see is that the amount of people that can make sense of this data is shorter and shorter in relationship, right? So we need to move on from the reaction, as you say, into the prediction, but the quantity of data that need to be analyzed, the speed at which the data need to be analyzed, the time, the short time in which we need to make this decision about what to do with the data require that all of these get automated. It need to be machine driven, especially as we get into real time. You definitely don't want to put a person that may fall asleep or be tired for a moment and reduce the process, right? So I think the first thing we need to recognize is that we are moving in a phase where we have to codify a certain set of business rules and then let the machine take their decisions automatically based on a maximum amount of data, hence the point I was making earlier on don't guess at some data, you need all data to be looked at. But I think for what we can do what we are doing with our customer today is bringing them these new tools, buying these companies that are, in a very hidden place of the world, nobody knows them, bringing them into the portfolio, connecting with the rest of the products we have, so that for the customer, the investment is no more into, putting together bits and pieces that are very incompatible between themselves, and so you spend more time to connect them that actually understand what they're doing, but really focus on your business. So if Cleartrip want to improve their booking, selection, or auto selection and presentation layer, well, that's what they should do. They should be spending 6 months in an IT project to figure out, the 500 engineer you were mentioning me, they should be focusing on the business decision process, not on the actual tooling to do that. And so I think what we do now more and more, we're getting asked by customer is, can we embed your technology in our website? Can we embed your technology in our machinery? Can we embed your technology in our own technology? And you know what? We are transforming as a company as well to provide those white label type solutions. But I think the critical pattern in all of these is, if you project yourself 10 years from now, it cannot be matter of a person looking to a dashboard, doing a meeting, and then think about it, and then discuss. You would be died. I mean, you die by then. You need to have a system to which you have said, I want this outcome based on this type of prediction, and the prediction needs to be run on as many data you can, from as many sources you can possibly get access to. And that's where we discussed it earlier, integration need to be smoothless, analytics need to be very powerful, and obviously need to get out of the way, right? So that you focus on your business. And so hopefully company like Dell can help in getting you out of the technology complexity and more into the actual business opportunity.
Do we have any questions from the audience? We have one down at the front here. I think, David, thank you very much indeed.
Yes, I do agree that everything needs to be automated at one point, specifically when things are becoming more complicated. However, I still do believe that behind every single machine, specifically when you were mentioning, and Mr. Hijazi as well, mentioning predictive modeling, you still need a specific team that can put together a specific algorithm. Now, be it the complexity of the algorithm to be able to function in real time or not, that is a different thing. I think we're headed towards that way, towards this era eventually. But this basically to get to the point of the question is, so from a data infrastructure, yes, we do have several different data sources that are coming in, so on and so forth. And let's take Dell, for instance. You have different key departments, and they all need to kind of be integrated, and they all need to talk to the same source, which is the database. How do you do the same thing within on an individual level, from a human level within the actual departments? Because it's easy to connect machines or a dashboard, but it's not easy to connect humans. And one of the problems I face basically is to be able to put, like the marketing department, the sales department, the IT department, all in one room and kind of have that to be integrated. Do you have any recommendations from that point?
Often companies make the mistake to adopt a solution and push it to everybody in the company. Now that may work for HR, but if it works for HR, usually it doesn't work for marketing. And if it doesn't work for marketing, maybe it doesn't work for finance or sales. So the first recommendation would be ensure that you are going with best of breed tools. I think the one solution fits all it just doesn't gonna be workable anymore. Now that creates that problem of data proliferation, data formats, and all of that. So that's where I think, to your point, what you want is a team on the back end that, yes, develop models, yes, develop business rules, but does not spend time in getting all this data synchronized. I mean, our experience with customers is amazing. 90% of a predictive analytics project, that is the most complicated project we can think of in Dell, 90% of it is data preparation. I mean, things that 30 years ago were a problem are still a problem today. And we're very happy when we go to the customer and we show them solution that actually reduce that 90%. So that what happens is not that they spend less money or less time, but they move the time and the money out of data preparation, that is boring, non-value add work, into the predictive analytics. And so you have a team that, rather than have to connect all the various columns and rows, is actually looking at the model. Is innovating the prediction model so that you can advance in the marketplace and win against your competitors. Data preparation, everybody does the same thing. It's not the competitive advantage. The competitive advantage is, if Amazon get into troubles, will Cleartrip have a better prediction model about presenting hotel rather than Amazon does, right?
Mr. Hijazi has a point, I think, to make on that as well.
Thank you. So to answer also Luigi's question, I want to explain how we do it practically again within the Cleartrip. So it all starts with the business decision. So that is the how you bring teams together. So if there is like a business problem and there is a top management buy-in, marketing will jump in, technology will jump in, business people will jump in. But this is like a business decision. It's not an IT decision, and it's not like a marketing decision. It's a business decision. Now, if the business problem is stated clearly that we need to increase, or let's say decrease, our cost per acquisition by 10%. Now, everybody needs to do their job. Now, collecting data, selecting the tool, using the, developing an algorithm for predictive modeling, whatever that is. But it needs to all start with a specific problem statement that actually affects the business. Other than this, it will be like good to have stuff.
Let's go to Mr. Akram now, because I'll just put something into that, because we are talking here now about our fourth point, really, which is identifying patterns and trends, and also being able to put those patterns and trends into decision-making by the executives of where to go next with those trends, isn't it?
Sure. So, one thing which is I want to add on top of the, what the gentleman just added is that, definitely it's a business-driven, but what is very important is the time from identifying a problem to actually accessing the data and coming up with real meaningful results is what is most essential. If you need to initiate a full project, which is 6 months or 3 months, for you to activate that program, you already lost the opportunity. So definitely being ready with the right model upfront, and this is maybe what we've started with, is essential for you to be able to be responsive to your market and to different business needs. Now, definitely, any organization would essentially want these trends, these signals to be very clear in a structured way, and reaches all the way to all decision makers. It's not just, decision maker is not just the CEO of an organization or the business owner or the marketing or the sales. It could be any of the parties who are involved in running this business, and it's just a matter of, tunneling this data based on, let's say, access rights, the proper access rights, but at the same time, make sure that this information are timely there, and those people are able to make sense of this information and action it. And this is, I think, the ultimate way of building a proper data warehousing model. Data warehousing, again, I would like just to add one thing. It's not very far from BI. Like people before used business intelligence. And in business intelligence, they've been already doing all of the data preparation, and they've done all of the required, structure of building the proper data models and visualization tools, and let's say business concepts that they're trying to test. The reality here, it's just a matter of making sure that all of the remaining information that you're trying to capture from your different silos has been prepared properly and put into the same, let's say, data warehousing. And at the same time, the whole drive about identifying a problem and finding a solution for it it's seamless in terms of a flow, but at the same time, effective in terms of the results that comes out of it. So it's essential that you don't really keep so much time for implementation and think that you have a real data warehousing authority. That's it.
I think one of the things that you mentioned, it was echoed by the panel, was having the right people in the right place, be able to write those algorithms that really are going to create the results that are wanted. And then I think, Mr. Hijazi, you talked about an executive decision. I think nowadays, the CEO and the other executives, the CTO is somebody quite new to that C-suite. Just a few years ago, there wasn't a CTO. I think probably I go far as to say that the CTO now has a responsibility, doesn't he, to the CEO to help him make better business decisions based on where we are today with technology, particularly with big data. Is that correct? Would you agree with that?
I was discussing about the same issue, how the current transformation, the CTO rather than Chief Technology Officer is a Chief Transformation Officer. So that why Transformation Officer? This is very important. Why? Because he's supporting business enablement through the very powerful business process alignment. Now, having ERPs, having systems, having Internet of Things, having structured and unstructured data to leverage the business analytics in a multi-dimensional format to have informed decision making is what the CEOs and the board they're looking for. For example, in order to plan where my investment is going to be in next 3 years, should I invest in new properties? Should I invest in new infrastructure? Should I invest in new mergers or acquisitions or any kind of promotion campaign? This all depends on my cash flow. And this cash flow is based on a series and pyramid of data which are emanating again from various sources. So at the end of the day, it's bringing business transformation.
CDO, Chief Digital Officer, CTO, Chief Technological Officer, or Transformation Officer. I think we need to be a bit leaner than that, right? I mean, these boardrooms are becoming too small. There's too many people around the table, right? So I firmly believe, and maybe it's because I'm in Dell, but CIO was Chief Information Officer. We're not far away from, big data. Information is big data, as big data is. So maybe we should just rename it Chief Innovation Officer. And that's really what it is at the end of the day. Because today, I feel, I meet a lot of CIO. Obviously we speak with many of the largest Fortune companies and also the smaller, mid-size, all sizes. And, that there is this phase of their role transforming. And, you are here on the panel, maybe you can enlarge on this, but the feedback I get is, they're a bit in the corner of the boardroom, right? It's the marketing team that say, I want big data analytics today. And here is a tool I can go online, pay with my credit card. And the CIO say, oh, wait a moment, our data online? No. That's not the right thing to do. And then there is the CFO that say, we need to reduce our stock. I have seen there is a fantastic supply chain management online. I'll pay with my credit card. And the CIO say, no way I'm going to give them access to our M3 system or whatever. So there is an element of governance, but it doesn't need to become a gatekeeping element. I mean, the CIO of today have to maintain that protection, that security, but at the same time need to go beyond. And the way I see they can go beyond is by embracing this new tooling that reduce the amount of effort in actually sustaining. I mean, there is a recent survey that we have run that said that people spend 80% of their time on keeping lights on and only 20% in innovation in IT. I think this is just ridiculous. I mean, 80% of the time and effort and resources on just keeping the things running, it should be the other way around, right? That's why we believe that we need to create those tools, we need to bring this tool that reduce maintenance, that reduce keeping lights on to a minimum, so that then you can focus on, let me bring new tools to do new things and to innovate and build new models and so on and so forth. But, I would try, if I was a CEO, I would try not to proliferate people around the table, because then a human relationship problem start to appear of, political things and so on. So, let's try and keep fewer people around the table, but more empowered. And the way to empower is reduce maintenance, increase innovation.
A lot of that does seem to make some sense, although there might be some anarchy involved in some boardrooms I can think of. Mr. Akram, can I come to you and ask for your comment on that? Good points made here. How do you stand on that? And we'll come back round.
So yeah, I completely agree. Definitely you don't want to create barriers between your team. You definitely wanted to make sure that the information flow, the capabilities are automatically given to the person who can make the maximum effect on the business. I think I can talk about it from an online perspective. We are in a business, if we don't move fast, if we don't innovate, we would die fairly quickly. And this happens at every front of the business, whether it's in terms of our sales operations, marketing, even product innovation. The data, we try to collect it to know exactly what form I should use, what fields should I basically field for the user. When should I stop? Do I do this in Saudi the same way I do it in UAE? what can I make use of those particular, say, million data records that tells me 2,000 companies in UAE, let's say, have a million person had worked for them. Do I deal with them differently? If that person basically comes into the site, do I basically message him differently? All of that needs to be designed from the product owner, from the business owner, from the sales, the marketing, and they need to have enough capabilities to make decisions about that. And creating barriers and then thinking it's like, you cannot use this, you cannot do that, without me being proactive and effectively opening the doors for them as a technologist or as I wouldn't really even say technologist, I should be a facilitator, whatever it takes. So I completely agree with Rigo on this.
Kumar, do you think we're going through a revolution here at the boardroom level?
Big time, big time. Actually, completely agree with what Akram said here. The way I mentioned the business enabler, a business transformation officer, or whatever it is. Now the entire world is moving digital. So, and the CIO or CTO or whatever, so they are taking the form of a CDO, Chief Digital Officer. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind everybody here that we are talking about a new age digital metamorphosis. We are talking about a digital revolution which is going to, to basically create barometers or barometrics for various departments. This digital revolution is bringing the business factors which are going to be integrated in a seamless fashion to generate the revenues and the business potential which are required to meet the customer demands. So at the end of the day, the big data revolution is creating various factors, or it's getting self-factored or auto-factored into predictive analytics, and right now it's getting into a more advanced predictive analytics. We call it something like anticipatory or anticipation analytics. So yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Mr. Hijazi, are you going to take this new revolution back to Cleartrip? Is that what's happening in your organization in terms of where big data is now really running the show?
No, definitely, and I would like to pick up what the gentleman Luigi and Akram was mentioning. So big data is, and Kumar. So big data is, data is there, but there is something really interesting Mr. Akram mentioned, is having the tools for the staff to actually use this data in quick mode. Because having a team to build, like the guy from Provision, they do analysis, you need to be very quick. So you need to be able to have the tools, the internal tools, to experiment. So what I would like to recommend is, and this is where one of the secrets we do at Cleartrip, and I'm allowed to share it publicly, is experimentations. So, and this actually relies on the 80-20 rule of innovation. So you need to experiment. Now you will not be able to do this unless, as Mr. Akram mentioned, that you have actually simple tools for business people, marketing people to actually make decisions based on those data using those simple tools. And you will be surprised the amount of assumptions that you already have that is totally wrong. I can tell you from my own experience, I did like maybe 10, I can tell you from out of 10 experiments, I start with a hypothesis that this is what I expect. Out of 10, like normally 9 of them is totally wrong, like what I expect. So you believe that you understand the consumer, like why, I mean, they need to love this is like really cool, but in reality they don't. And you need to experiment. Without those data and tools, you cannot do it.